Hi everyone, for those who don't know, my name is Paige, and I'm here to talk today about environmental education. So, communication is 14, communications in the environment, the reason why at least a third of us are here today. By a show of hands, for how many of you is this your first environmentally based class you've taken here at UW? And for those with your hands raised, did you learn anything about the environment? Just keep it raised, if you did. Sweet, so we can kind of see that environmental education does in fact work. This was our little study we did ourselves. But I'm not here today to talk about what we do at UW. I'm here today to talk about the middle school and high school education system. So, what exactly is EE, or environmental education? There are three things that environmental education focuses on. The first is that students are allowed to explore the environment. The second is engaging in problem solving, not only just with the environment, but with other humans as well. And the third is taking action to improve our environment. There are a couple of benefits to environmental education, such as allowing students to develop critical thinking skills, and learning about how the oceans work, how that interacts with the atmosphere and with us as humans. They develop critical thinking skills that they're going to be using later on in their schooling career, as well as later on in their jobs. Secondly, it helps them understand the planet a little bit better as humans' roles in the ecosystem. And third, engaging with the environment, because so many of us have seen that now students are starting to stay inside more than go back out. Environmental education helps push students to go out and explore nature a little bit more. So these are actual pictures of me I found from my 8th grade science classroom. Yeah, they're right there in the middle. I went home this weekend and found them in my yearbook, and I thought I can include this with my presentation. The thing I remember most about my 8th grade science class was that I built this roller coaster, and the reason I remember it so well is not because we got first place because it was the best, but that I helped incorporate our physics unit and to tie it perfectly back together with something that I enjoy in real life, which is roller coasters. Environmental education focuses just on that and how to incorporate what students love most about nature and let them go out and do it. So imagine for yourselves if you were in 8th grade and you got a project that focused not instead on roller coasters, but on waste management or air pollution or even greenhouse gases and how that affects our atmosphere. Would you still be here today in the major that you're in maybe, or would you be somewhere else? Today's education doesn't just focus on things like environmental education stresses. Today's education focuses on completing and consuming, while environmental education focuses on caring and conserving. A study done in the Midwest focused on this exactly. Student conceptions on global warming and climate change. They interviewed 51 students across grades 7th through 12th grade and had them take a test during their science class to see if they knew something about environmental change happening on the world. So they were asked first to interpret a graph depicting global warming, second to explain the relationship between carbon dioxide and global warming, third to explain how climate change affects oceans, humans, people, and the weather, fourth to draw the greenhouse gas effect, and fifth how humans influence carbon dioxide and how we can reduce our effects. Not shockingly, the findings proved to be similar to other studies. Almost half of the students did not believe that global warming would have impacts on humans or society. Students are confused about what exactly greenhouse gases were and how they affected our atmosphere. And lastly, the resolutions to global warming did not lie with students themselves, but with scientists and technology in the future. Climate has been a part of the National Research Council on Education for Science from grades 4th grade and up, and yet there's still a huge disconnect from what students know and what they're learning. Here's an example of one student's interpretation of how greenhouse gases work. They literally drew a greenhouse with gases inside of it. So this kind of shows that students aren't really necessarily learning about what's happening now and taking what they've learned from the past and not really connecting it to the future. At the end of the study, the author wrote, in essence, these students did not relate global warming and climate change to their daily life or future activities. The conceptual gap is real, and it's evident with our education system today. The scientific perspective that students are learning are not aligned with the IPCC, which is the Interpanhellenic Government on Climate Change reports, and they need to be for a successful future. So what? So why should you care about what middle schoolers and high schoolers are learning now? Why do you care about their environmental education? Well, in the future, you'll be called upon to understand and explain and even teach complex environmental issues and stances in the future, and it is imperative that we start now. The gap is real, the conceptual gap between students' knowledge and the scientific community. Because still, 45 million Americans believe that the ocean contains fresh water. This is false, for those who don't know. Environmental education also encourages engagement with science outside of the classroom. Our nation's future relies on a well-educated public, and environmental education connects many different sorts of subjects, such as economics, health, and social sciences. We have the responsibility to our world to understand the changes happening, and environmental education brings just that. Thank you.